Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, and this is the part 2 of this video for Jess Franco's 1980 film, Two Female Spies with Flowered Panties. I already have the first video up on this YouTube page, and this is part 2 to that video. So please feel free to check out the first video first, or whatever you'd like to do, of course. Two Female Spies with Flowered Panties, 1980. And there's a couple more things I wanted to add to this. And so I wanted to do that in this video here. In this film, we have actors that I have not seen in many Jess Franco films or in any Jess Franco films at all. As well, there is also an actress that is near the beginning of this film in a very disturbing silent sequence of the film that you might not recognize at first, and then all of a sudden you start to look closer at her face and the white lighting, and all of a sudden you see through the white lighting, and all of a sudden you notice that she might have been in a Jess Franco film that I reviewed on this YouTube page called Love Letters of a Portuguese Nun. So all of a sudden you might see that there, or Women in Cell Block 9. So very, very interesting stuff there. But I also saw some faces, in particular, this one woman who I don't think I've ever seen before. And she really held a very villainous presence in this film, if that's a word, villainous. Yeah, villainous presence as a, using it in that way. But the thing that was interesting was you see her with clothes on, then you see her with clothes off near the end of the film, and all of a sudden you start to realize she takes on a different persona, even a different persona of attraction. We also have Muriel Montos in this film, and the interesting thing is that Lena's character's name is like some form of Cecilia, I believe, and Muriel Montos plays plays Cecilia in Jess Franco's film Cecilia, which I've also looked at on this YouTube page. And Muriel Montos kind of comes out of nowhere, and what an amazing, unbelievable presence she has in this film, with slightly different hair than you're used to seeing with her, and these unbelievable black sunglasses. So just really such a presence to all of the actors in this film, the actors that you know and the actors that you might not be as familiar with. Lena Romay is really doing this wonderful mix of intensity and also her playfulness that you could see in such films like The Sex is Crazy, which I've also done a YouTube video of. So an interesting mix in her acting abilities, and just always all around emotionally awesome, Lena Romay. And then we have this lead male villain who I've seen before in other Franco films, and he is at his absolute finest in this movie, the bald-headed gentleman. Now, I also wanted to make a few more notes, and Jess Franco has his own world, and he is my favorite director, and this is why maybe a lot of you love Jess Franco. And he has his own world, and this world is really beyond what we would consider politically correct or PC or offensive or shocking, blah blah blah. Jess Franco's world is what it is. It is Jess Franco's world, and it is filled with freedom, and that freedom even takes the form of resolutions that are out of the norm, humor that is out of the norm. What is normal? The definition of what is normal. What is a happy ending? What is, not in the massage parlor way, I'm talking about in the conclusion of a film way or a story way. What is a resolution? What is good? Are there morals at all? Or is it based on something else? In a Jess Franco interview, I believe in one of the special features for another one of his films, I believe it was Sadomania, which I'll be looking at in the future on this YouTube page, he mentioned that something along the lines of that he does not have a morality, quote unquote. And you can look at films, such as How to Seduce a Virgin and things like that, where running themes play through his films, and there is something else happening in Jess Franco's world, and that is why it is so beautifully important and interesting and fascinating and beyond anything else that you could see in cinema. We also have some added music in this film involving some kind of hippie acoustic guitar work. Something that I thought was really interesting in this Jess Franco film is that there was a hippie commune, and that there was also kind of like some exploitation goodness in this film involving like vengeance. You know, not something I would typically see in a Jess Franco film, and it kind of comes out of nowhere in the stone, stone tunnel hideaways on this beachy spot in the film, with all of this kind of hippie commune and talk of drugs and very interesting stuff going on, and it was just a plot element that I would typically see in a 70s exploitation film, not necessarily something in a Franco film, and it's so awesome, especially in the context of this entire film. You also see his sadomasochistic themes running through this film in a very different and unique twist and fashion. It's done in, you could almost see this film. You could almost see this film in a way kind of connected, in a way of sorts, with Venus and Furs, which I'll be looking at in the future on this YouTube page. But there is something in the S&M in this film that in a little bit reminds me of the sensual story of O, which I've also looked at on this YouTube page. But it's viciously dark in this film. It's almost evil, really along the lines of the sensual story of O. It's hard to watch. It's deeply emotionally cruel in a way, and that inner depth of emotional cruelty disturbs you, mystifies you, and overwhelms you. And it's done in such an amazing artistic fashion. At the same time, you're wondering to yourself, is this ahead of its time? Is this with its time? Who is the market for this? Especially with all of the different genres portrayed in this film, you can see in part 1 of this video. I also wanted to say that we had some shaky cam in this film from Franco, and we had, some zooms and things like that, but nothing really wild. It was wild, and there were a lot of different angles in this film. But a very interesting angle that was done in this film was close-up of the eyes. And also, I mentioned kaleidoscopes through a ring, but also kaleidoscopes and lens flares through eyeballs in this film. Close-ups of faces, and also an interesting form of editing in this film where we are constantly kind of moving around the jungle, moving around the different kind of courtyards of this hotel jungle in the Canary Islands. And I must also add that there is some humor with a parakeet in this film, which seems to be a little bit of a staple for Mr. Franco in some of his other films that I've looked at on this YouTube page, where he has talking birds expressing humor. And we also have a bit of a focus, this one amazing shot on a boat in the water behind, and this one amazing shot of a porch window and somebody standing in it. Something that you've definitely seen all the way up to his one-shot production days. So while there is some of Franco's more wild camera work, the editing I thought was taking the wild area, and this was a film that was mostly, to me, focused on focus of the camera, out of focus camera, in focus camera. What should a movie be? How should the camera be focused in a movie, in cinema, to make it a movie? I don't think Jess Franco really cares about any of that. But I'll tell you something. This experience is something I will not forget. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like 1980s Two Female Spies with Flowered Panties. Thank you so much for watching part 2 of this video, and have a great night.